Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of Babergh District Council Cabinet. Before I start, I'd like to wish all colleagues and residents a happy and healthy new year. I'm sure we have lots of challenges ahead of us, but as always, I am sure we will rise to them. So without further ado, I'm Councillor Deborah Saw, leader of Babergh District Council, and I will be chairing this meeting. May I remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use. Please do not interrupt other speakers or hold separate conversations whilst others are speaking. If you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. Finally, we will be using e-voting for this meeting on the modern.gov app, so please could members make sure they are logged in and ready to use the app. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. The council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Can I move to the agenda, please? Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Busby.
Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary other registrable or non-registrable interests by members. Are there any to declare? No? Okay. Item 3, BCA/24/35, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of December 2024. Please note these minutes are set out in the tabled papers. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Smith, seconder Councillor Davis. If there are no points regarding the accuracy, we will move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 8 votes for. That's carried.
Thank you. Item 4. BCA/24/36, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of December 2024. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Ward, and a seconder, Councillor McCraw. The Governance Officer will now conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Derek Davis, may I take your vote verbally? It hasn't on mine, sorry. Thank you, Chair. That's 6 votes for and 2 abstentions. That's carried.
Scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6, questions by councillors. Okay. I shall revisit this.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There are no matters referred, Chair.
Services here. I will now invite the Cabinet Member for Housing to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report proposes important updates to Babergh's rent and service charge policies aimed at creating a more equitable, transparent and sustainable system for tenants. These changes are to ensure that tenants contribute fairly towards the cost of services they use while allowing the council to maintain high standards of service delivery. The first key proposal is the introduction of service charges. The proposed changes are service charges that will be introduced for tenants who benefit from communal services such as cleaning and maintenance in shared areas. This is important as it ensures that tenants pay only for the services they use, eliminating the cross-subsidisation where non-users have been funding the services from others. This approach aligns Babergh with the best practices in social housing and meets the expectations of the regulator of social housing. This will benefit tenants as these changes have fairer contributions towards services they directly benefit from, leading to a more equitable distribution of costs. Additionally, clearer charges will improve transparency and help tenants better understand what they are paying for. The second key proposal is fair cost recovery. Currently, some communal services are subsidised by the general rent pool, meaning tenants who do not use these services have been indirectly covering the costs of those who do. The proposed changes will end this practice by ensuring that tenants are only paying for the services they use. This will free up funds previously spent on subsidies, which can be redirected to improving properties and community services. And this ensures that tenants who do not use certain services are no longer subsidising others, improving fairness and satisfaction. The third key proposal is phased approach to service charges. Service charges will be introduced gradually, with initial increases capped at 5% for tenants in sheltered housing. This phased implementation will minimise financial impact and give tenants time to adjust. For those on fixed income or benefits, the gradual increase will allow for better financial planning and minimise strain. The gradual approach helps ensure that tenants can adjust to changes without being financially overwhelmed. And the fourth key proposal is the review of supported accommodation. We will conduct a review of services provided in supported accommodation with the aim of improving efficiency and reducing costs over the next 2 to 5 years. By identifying areas where costs can be reduced, we aim to ensure that supported accommodation services continue to be of high quality while also achieving full cost recovery. This will ensure that residents in supported accommodation receive services tailored to their needs, while the council ensures long-term sustainability of these services. In transparency and fairness, these reforms will provide tenants with a clear breakdown of charges, ensuring that they know exactly what they are paying for. And the aim for this is to build trust between the council and tenants, who will see that their contributions are going towards services they benefit from directly. With better resource allocation, funds can be directed into maintaining and improving communal facilities, leading to better living standards and higher satisfaction across the board. With these changes, we will always support vulnerable tenants. We will continue to provide support through the financial inclusion team to help those on low incomes manage the new charges. Additionally, these charges will be eligible for housing benefit and universal credit, providing further support to vulnerable tenants. By aligning service charges with actual service use and improving the management of supported accommodation, the Council will ensure financial sustainability. This allows for continued investment in housing services, ensuring that tenants continue to live in safe, well-maintained homes. So just to sort of sum up without repeating myself, this should have happened a long time ago, and I think that it needs to happen, not just so the HRA is in a comfortable position to be able to continue to be a landlord, to be able to deliver services that are needed, but also in fairness for all tenants, whether that's council tenants, general needs, sheltered accommodation. I would like to thank officers for all the work they have put into this. I feel like they've lived and breathed it for the past few months. And I'd like to end by proposing the recommendations. And if anyone has any questions, I will try my best to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ward. We'll now move to questions from members. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. I thought it was a really good paper. It was very thorough, and I was really impressed with the question and answers, with the engagement from the tenants. And I think that's really important. In terms of these fees, what guarantee do tenants have that they won't suddenly get landed with an unexpected bill, say if a roof blows off?
So I think that communication is key, and we have learned from previous mistakes. And I think that is the whole part of the incremental charges, so that we're not just saying this is now what you have to pay to be able to live here. It's been capped, so it is hopefully affordable for most, and for those who it isn't, we're always there to support them. But sorry, essentially these charges, they need to happen, but we want them to happen in the best way possible, so people aren't landed with a big bill. And the breakdown of rent, I think, is really important, and something that will, no matter what sort of tenant they are, they'll be able to look and see, this is what I'm paying for and why. But if officers want to add anything, please do.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, just to respond to that a bit more fully, I guess would just be to say that the service charges are set annually as part of the budget setting process, so they won't change during the course of the year, so there'll always be the opportunity for members to review the cost breakdown and any additional high value items. The policy proposed amendments make provision for the fact that some works cost more than others, and the cost of those could be spread out over a period of time. But also in saying that, many of the repair works that we do to maintain the structure of the property come under the rent payments, essentially called Section 11 repairs, which essentially means that for a tenant, it's included in your rent. You wouldn't pay an additional service charge if the roof was to blow off, for example. That would be something that we would take responsibility for as the landlord, and the cost of that would come out of essentially the rent we're already receiving, so it wouldn't be an additional charge.
Yeah, I think what I'm asking is, for those that have the service charge and the maintenance charge on top, we've seen in the private sector, all of a sudden they can get hit with a huge bill, which the tenants then have to find from that. What protection do our council tenants have in protection? Is it through insurance? Is it through reserves? What is it that will cover that to protect the tenant?
So I would suggest that's largely due to large capital components on leasehold blocks of flats. So in the private sector, so let me give you an example. It might be the external wall covering, you know, when we think about Grenfell and all the changes that have needed to take place to make buildings safe. But in terms of, if I can give you another example which may well apply to our housing stock, if you think of a flatted block and the roof, you know, roofs usually have a life of about sort of 50, 60 years. So if we get to the point that we need to replace the roof, we would, that charge would go over sort of 60 years and then would be charged back to the residents, so they wouldn't have sort of, you know, like a £5,000-10,000 bill in year one. It would be spread over those 60 years. So that gives them a level of certainty with the capital components. With the repairs and maintenance, repairs are you know, your day-to-day repairs in the communal areas. Again, if we've got any improvements, that would be stretched out over a period of time. So another example for you, what we may choose to do is we may need to replace the flooring in blocks of flats on the stairs, so it's non-slip flooring, so it's safe. And again, we would look at that over maybe about 20 years, just to make that affordable for residents, and also over the lifespan of that component.
No, that's okay. I no longer have a question. While I've been waiting, I've actually answered it myself. So
Okay.
it's on the service charge.
Councillor
okay,
Sally
thanks.
Davies then.
Looking at the equality impact assessment, it's overwhelmingly negative on each of the protected characteristics. And these are some of the most vulnerable people in society. I noticed one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but at one point in the figures, somebody, for instance, would face a rise in charges of £9.56 a week. And of those tenants, 48% of them were not on housing benefit, which I think means about 10 or 11 tenants would be affected. And these are the people who, because benefits wouldn't pay for the rise, these are maybe the working poor who are working. And it would be so disappointing if even one of those tenants suffered because of what we're doing here. And I have to say, you know, the words are in there that we are going to do the best we can to make sure nobody, you know, I'd hate to think that anybody would be worrying about this. But can I just have some reassurance that we really are going the extra mile to make sure that this doesn't adversely impact some of the most vulnerable people?
Can I come to that quickly before I pass it over? Thanks. Yeah, so that was, I suppose, one of my main concerns. Looking at it in black and white, as I said before, it is definitely something that needs to happen, and it is fairer, but the last thing you want to do is to put someone in a financial situation that they just can't handle. Looking at what £9 a week when you haven't got it, even £1 a week when you haven't got it, is an awful situation to put someone in. But we will be working with people as closely as possible. There is the cost of living support, there is looking at other benefits that they could possibly be entitled to because of situation changes, age changes, but the last thing we want to do is either put someone in a financial situation where it impacts their life negatively, or even worse than that, where they can't afford to live there anymore. That isn't at all what anyone is looking to do. So yeah, I'm happy with what I've been told about what we're doing to support, but I will just pass it over if anyone wants to add anything.
Thank you. And just to further expand on what Councillor Carter has said, we do have a tenancy sustainment team who can support tenants who may find difficulty in paying. What we also have is we have AI software we use, so we can actually predict when tenants are struggling to pay their rent, and we can intervene early and help them. So, for example, it may be that a tenant isn't entitled to benefits now, but if they have to pay service charge, it sort of slightly tips that balance over. So you know, we can get in there and help them with that. And we have done quite a lot of work on affordability across both districts to understand, you know, how that looks in terms of whether these charges are affordable. And I'm not sure we haven't sent that out, but we can do it at some point, and that's quite a comprehensive piece of work. The other thing is we know that some residents may find this difficult, and that is why you know, there's a suggestion not to implement the full service charge in one go. But that said, we also, as difficult as it is, need to consider our other tenants who are living in houses who are subsidising, you know, those tenants who are living in flats. So this is a really difficult sort of piece of work for everybody, I think. But we are absolutely committed to putting our tenants first and doing our best. And just to finish, you know, we've got an obligation and a desire to create great places and great properties, and you know, if we're maximising our income, that helps us to do that.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I'm interested in the tenant feedback in Appendix F. You say that 29 of the tenants did not think that some or all of the charges applied to them across the two districts. And then you go on to say that you've resolved 16 of those queries. 16 of those queries, I assume. Could you tell us more about what the tenants originally thought and how you went about assuring them that the charges do apply to them, please?
Thank you. Yes, you're correct in your estimations there that we've begun work to resolve some of those queries. Unfortunately, I don't have that level of detail to hand me right now. I could probably look it up and update you outside of the meeting, but just to... Oh, you're welcome to jump in if you want to. Sorry.
And yes, thank you. And the other thing that members might not know is when we went out to consultation, we had a range of charges, some of which won't have been appropriate for specific tenants, because we just listed them all as examples. So when tenants get their letter, you know, prior to the rent increase, they will have specifics on their letter which outline which individual charges will be relevant to them, which is a real improvement on what we've done previously in terms of being transparent with our residents.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from Cabinet colleagues? No. Any questions from any other members?
I never miss an opportunity, Chair.
Well, indeed not.
I've got two questions. My first one is really similar to my colleagues that have raised this concern about people's awareness of what's going to happen. Looking at the results of the consultation, I don't know whether 10% response is normal or not, but there must be an awful lot of people left who are actually not interested or not sure that it applies to them. And I noticed you were reassuring us that the financial inclusion team will work with tenants that have got difficulties. But as a service, I think you're going to get a lot of questions. Do you have the resources as a team to deal with that within housing? Thank you.
So we work in partnership, as you know, with CAP and Sam Lake, who's the head of service. You know, has been working with us, so is aware of you know, when our rent letters go out. I mean, they go out every year, and I understand that this year will be particularly busy because some of those letters will have additional service charges. So we've got the resource there in that team, and also we've got an income team that sits under Rob as head of service, and we've also got some tenancy sustainment officers that at the moment sit in Emma's team, but we will be looking at having a tenancy sustainment resource in Rob's team, because the key to supporting tenants, not just at rent setting and service charge setting, but at all times of the year, is early intervention and getting in there to support our tenants.
And my second question, Chair, is that okay?
Absolutely.
As Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, I wondered if this was going to become a subject of the Tenant Scrutiny Committee. Thank you.
So that is a matter for the Tenant Scrutiny Committee to decide on. I know that their next project is complaints. Oh.
Thank you.
I do have one. Obviously, the regulator is looking for greatest amount of transparency possible, both in communication and of clarification of these charges. Have you had any contact with the regulator about these charges? And if not, how are we going to report these to the regulator?
So the service charges as such don't come under the rent standards, so we wouldn't report those to the regulator. The regulator is aware of our governance regime that David White helped to put in place in terms of oversight, and in particular how we not just inform tenants, but how we embrace tenants in having in helping us develop our services, and members will be aware that we took these very proposals to our customer experience committee before we brought them to members, and they were in favour. So should we be inspected and the regulator want to have a look at generally what we do with our customer experience committee, we do take minutes of those meetings, and those would be available, as would any minutes of meetings. We take minutes for all our meetings because the regulator may ask for anything from any meeting. So that's how we ensure transparency.
Thank you. Right, I will now open the item up for debate. Contributions from councillors. Councillor Davis.
I'll kick it off, yeah. This is a tough one, isn't it? We hate having to increase costs to our tenants, especially those, as already been mentioned, that are having a really tough time of it at the moment as it is. However, I am reassured to a large extent about the support that there is and the backup that will be. And of course, we know it's necessary to do this. Unfortunately, it is necessary to do this. In my own little way, I'm particularly pleased to see the inclusion of the Armed Forces Covenant piece in the assessment, because it's no secret that homelessness, armed forces contribute to one of the largest homeless numbers in the country. Gladly, happily, not in Babergh. We do very well in Babergh on that, but it is still an issue. Mental health issue is something that affects an awful lot of veterans, and it can be the littlest of things that can tip people over. So I'm glad to see that that's been taken into consideration as well. So I'll be supporting the motion, and I appreciate how tough it has been to get where we are with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Sally Davies.
Yeah, I agree with one of the other Councillor Davis, that it's really tough. What I would say is that If I was paying an extra charge for the communal areas, I would expect those communal areas to be really well maintained. So I really don't expect the tenants that I have who live in places in blocks of flats to be telling me about how poorly maintained they are. Now that we've got this particular charge in place, it's a give and take situation, and I really hope that I don't have to hear that again.
Thank you. Any further questions? Or, issues, items? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Echoing the two Councillor Davies's, I think it's fair to raise the service charges as long as we're keeping the services, maintaining the services, making sure they're in place. And I just wanted to offer that for older people who aren't receiving pension credit, Citizens Advice can offer help. There's a Surviving Winter grant. Obviously the withdrawal of the fuel allowance affects some people. So Citizens Advice, Surviving Winter.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ward.
Yeah, obviously the issue is one of fairness, and I think we've got the right balance here. We do recognise the fact that we can't subsidise these service charges from our rental income, and it is just bringing us in line with best practice within the social rented sector. So, and I think we've put in a huge amount of work to make sure that we're doing it in as fair a way as we possibly can. I note from the tenant consultation that the quality of the feedback was good, but very few people actually responded. Now, one could assume that the majority are happy with what we're proposing. It's always difficult to make that sort of judgment from consultation feedbacks, but I think we've done everything we can to inform and invite comment on this. So from my point of view, I think what we've got here is a new policy that I think we can be confident will be the right one for our tenants.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Just one further point from me. Sheltered housing. We are conducting a review of our sheltered housing provision at the moment, or are about to. Could you tell us when the sort of critical dates for that?
So we're actually carrying out a review on William Wood House and Sydney Brown Court, and we expect that will take about another 4 weeks. So when that is completed, then we will produce the scope for sheltered housing, and it'll probably take 4 months, I would have thought, at a rough estimate.
Thank you. Councillor Helen Davis, I was too premature then.
No worries. I would echo the comments the other councillors have made. I still have a lingering worry over affordability and whether or not we'll pick up on it in time. So I wondered, could we have an update on this in 6 months and in a year, so we can understand how this has affected our residents?
Yes?
Sorry, yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Excellent. Councillor Carter.
Sorry. I hate repeating what people have already said, but I will a little bit, sorry. So it is a really difficult and really sensitive situation that we shouldn't necessarily be in. We shouldn't have had others subsidising these costs. But I think the caps are there to keep people as safe and as comfortable as possible within these increases. And I am quite confident that we will be there to support people throughout this, and not before it is too late, but as these changes happen. I just think that it needs to happen, and it is a shame. I mean, if we could afford to be making these services free, then that would be great, but we can't, and someone else is paying for it, and that isn't fair. And I also really hope that the communal areas will be kept brilliantly, and people will love where they live, and it will be a home that it will be a home. It will be somewhere that they are happy to live in. And I think that we have learned from previous mistakes, and that communication is really key here, and that is something we will do more than we've ever done before, and better than we have ever done before. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. If there are no further questions, I'll move to the recommendations. The options A and C be approved. Option A, to amend the rent and service charge policy and enable the council flexibility to charge for all eligible communal services. The timing of when these charges are introduced is at the discretion of the council and will form part of the HRA budget and rent setting process each year. Option C, to approve the introduction of service charges as per the plan set out in paragraph 1.5 above. The final charges to be approved in the HRA budget decision in February 2025. So we'll now move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. We now move to item 10, BCA/24/38, Babergh and Mid-Suffolk Economic Strategy. We have Michelle Gordon, the Head of Service Economy and Business, and Nicola Healy, Funding and Business Analyst. I will now ask the Cabinet Member for Sustainable Economy to introduce the report. Councillor Derek Davis. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this economic strategy, working in partnership with Mid-Suffolk and other partners around Suffolk and in the business and councils communities, it is here to give us a long-term vision and to outline our set of ambitions, which goes along with our strategy going forward. How long that will be for, we don't know yet, but it's there. Basically, we want to achieve an awful lot of things in terms of moving forward, skills, sustainability, making things work in our community for Babergh. This includes prioritising and promoting the green economy, which we're all part of and has been part of the strategy now for a while. We look to champion solutions, retrofitting and renewable energy. One of the other things, of course, is promoting high-paid skills and jobs in the district. We have a unique district in many ways in terms of a rural economy, tourism, but also we offer an awful lot of skills, various, we look at Sudbury, Hadley, Brantham, where the regeneration is coming through. We've got a lot of skilled workers there who we can utilise going forward as well. So this all parts of the, all fits in with our infrastructure for the communities, then we need to thrive. The economy needs to thrive, and we can play our part in Babergh and Mid-Suffolk by using this strategy. There's been a lot of hard work put into it in terms of consultation. We've met with a lot of business people. Michelle and Nicola and the team have held workshops and other events to gain a lot of information, and it's really vital. I'm glad to see that we've pushed a little bit harder in terms of the Armed Forces Covenant. That's important for our veterans, and also the serving personnel and their families, because it's great having lots of service people in the area, but their families need to get employment as well, so it's important that we support that, and that is all part of the strategy. In terms of the words, as I say, it's clearly laid out now. We do plan to bring forward the action plan separately at a later cabinet meeting to be confirmed, but that will help, and I know that was brought up before. It's okay having the strategy, but we need to actually show how we're going to achieve that, and the action plan will do that as well. The only one slight concern I have is the actual colour of the thing, because on the mod.gov it looks one colour. Michelle has kindly given me a hard copy, it looks a different colour, and I've seen an electronic version which is another colour. I'd like to see the green of Babergh included in there, not these blues, and as you can see from that, and in the mod.gov, Babergh looks like the black hole of Suffolk rather than a thriving economy. So I think we need to to work on that to make sure that the Babergh colour of green is used within the strategy. So I hope that can be taken on board and actioned as well. Because while we're here, we may as well keep the continuity in terms of Babergh and all our branding that has been part of that. So there's the recommendations, as you can see on the paper, are there. 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 and 3.4. We've got no changes for those, so we hope that you will support this, and obviously I look for a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Questions from members? Oh no, seconder. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Ward is seconding. So now we'll move to questions from members. Councillor Sally Davies.
I was glad to see that the economic strategy team has been working with the planning team. This is really important, and I'm trying to get my head around this economic strategy, because, of course, we've been told now by the government that we have to build 775 houses per year in Babergh. How do we work an economic strategy around that? I'm trying to get my head around whether do we try and increase employment to give jobs to the people who are moving here, or will the people moving here need new jobs? How do we work around this new environment that we find ourselves in? I've also got, can I do another question now, or should I wait?
No, please carry on.
I'll do another question. Have we taken into account the fact that we, again, in another strategic mismatch, our water supply is under heavy pressure? And, in Mid-Suffolk, there's a moratorium on certain commercial uses for water. We're heading that way with Anglian Water. Have we taken that into account when we're looking at our economic strategy?
So should I do that first, the
Yes,
second one
do.
first?
Yeah,
So we have discussed with Anglian Water, we've had meetings with Anglian Water. The problem that we have is the same as everywhere else in terms of while they have a statutory duty to supply water supply and the sewage to housing, and that's going to be an important part, especially increasing that, they don't in terms of business and commercial use, as we've seen in Hartsmere, for example, and other areas. So yes, the team have been in deep discussion with Anglian Water, and it's something that is continuous, that doesn't stop. Going back to your other point, which is so important and absolutely right, the strategy provides the foundation for this, for exactly that, to help increase employment and employment opportunities in terms of skill growth, The team already do an awful lot going out into the communities and working with skill hubs and everything like that, and working in partnership. Partnership work is so important. So, for example, we need to improve the infrastructure throughout, as we know. This includes 5G. You know, I heard our local politician or our local MP today saying that Suffolk had one of the best broadbands around. Well, I don't know where he's going because it's just not true. You know, we need a better 5G. We need better broadband. We need that infrastructure to encourage businesses to the area, and also people that work from home have. So those new houses that the government expects us to build, they need to be able, a certain percentage need to be able to work from homes. For that, they need good broadband, good 5G. So that's something, again, the team has been involved in talks, and it's a continuing process. Like I say, the action plan will help flesh that out. The other thing is, the new homes, it provides employment opportunity, but we need to find the skills. There's just not enough bricklayers. There's just not enough electricians. There's not enough plumbers. And again, that's not just Babergh, that's widely. But the strategy will work towards doing that, fulfilling that. And again, that's part of the work that the team continue to do on a daily basis, and working with all our partners. We can't do this alone, we know that. And so, yeah, I'd like to paint a brighter picture for you, but you know, it is what it is, I'm afraid. But the strategy will give us a foundation to move forward on all of those aspects and be ready for when we get gobbled up.
Thank you, Councillor. If I just add a few quick points just for clarification. We're working really closely with the planning policy team to ensure that we've got alignment between the economic strategy ambitions and the changes that have been made to the NPPF in relation to the housing and employment targets. At the moment within Babergh, we're looking at something like 97% employment in terms of the existing population. There isn't an enormous amount of people who don't have a job, and those that don't, we're already working very closely with alongside other partners to try and ensure that we provide as much support as possible to them. By adding more people into the economy, we will have to look at new employment opportunities that are being created as well. The employment land review that was carried out alongside the planning policy team earlier this year identified, I think it was 21 hectares need of new employment land in Babergh. That will be revised as part of the changes to the local plan in terms of the revised joint local plan. In terms of the water resource issues, as Councillor Davis has said, we are working very closely with both water providers and are attending the Suffolk Water Forum on Thursday to look at working with all local authority partners and the water authorities and the NFU and farmers to ensure that we're trying to tie this together as much as possible to reduce the impact of utility challenges that are affecting our growth ambitions.
Thank you, Michelle. Councillor McCraw.
Thank you, Chair. I was very pleased to hear Councillor Davis in his introduction mentioning some of the economic areas that this could most easily be applied to. That would be obviously Sudbury and Hadley, but he mentioned Brantham as well. Personally, I would add Pinewood on the Ipswich Fringe. It's the largest source of our business rates income, for example. And although those jobs may not be the highest value, since many of them are based in retail, they are still jobs. And I take the point that Michelle mentioned, we need to encourage. There is a question. We need to encourage people in. So on that point, on encouraging people in, I apologise. Brantham Regeneration Area has been a project on our books for some years. Can I ask what steps we're taking to engage with the landowners and potential employers for specifically the Brantham Regeneration Area?
Yeah, I'll pass that to Michelle because I know she's been in talks with the landowner and business operatives, and some schemes have come and fallen and whatever. But Michelle and Nicola will be able to give you the latest.
Thank you, Councillor. And in terms of summary, Councillor Davis has expressed it clearly. We have been working with the owner of the site for quite a long time. They've had, I think there's still 5 businesses that are still operating from the Brantham site that are doing really well and have no intention of moving anywhere else. All of the decontamination works and all of the site preparation works have all been completed. The Wybrow agents were appointed to market the site. For the last year and a bit, they've told us they've had 3 tenants that have been close to heads of terms for taking new plots within that development, but they've never quite got over the line. It's one of the jobs on the to-do list now is to get back in touch with them, because they have been a little quiet in the last few months, to make sure that we know what their current position is and that they actively market the site.
If I could follow up, Chair. I only mention this because it's not just a matter of a year and a half. This has been an ongoing situation for many years, and it has been completely static. I'm going to forget some of the history because that's not what's important right now. All I can say is if there are any efforts we can do to encourage those businesses, the Brantham site has got all the services it requires. There is a slight issue with access. On the other hand, it's still better than many other places, and I would have thought favourable terms could be sought from the owner.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, noted. I will get in touch with the owner again and have those conversations. And I think just to add, I will also get in touch with Tendering Council, because as part of the work that we have been doing around the Brantham area, Lawford, Manningtree and Mistley are full, and a lot of the businesses that are in Brantham have actually come over from the Essex side, and certainly when they're looking at expansion opportunities, the Brantham site is perfect for those businesses to expand into. So we'll pick that up now.
I'd just add, Michelle, I have long-term contact with the landowners, whatever company name they are operating under, so I know some of the people involved. If I can help in any way, please get in touch with me.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. Are there any further questions from members? No. I have a question. When we look at some of our towns, in actual fact, the vacancy rates are better than the average. But I do know, for example, in Sudbury, one of the challenges is that there are not sufficient premises for companies to expand into. And consequently, there may be a danger of them moving out of district. Could we address this particular issue, and how is this going to be addressed in planning going forward?
We could encourage them to move to Brantham, perhaps, to expand. But no, it is something. And as you say, we do have a very good take-up rate in both Hadley and Sudbury, and in some of the villages as well. And I know Michelle and the team have met on a regular basis with various businesses, the business groups within those towns, and I'm sure Michelle will be able to give you more of an update.
Thank you, Councillor. In Sudbury, the vacancy rate, I think, is only about 7%, and we're just about to do the next round of vacancy assessments following Christmas. We usually do see a slight increase following Christmas, but consistently we are below the national average, and certainly as market towns we are doing a lot better than the majority are. The challenge is that the quality of some of those shops aren't always as good as they could be, but also because there aren't a lot of premises vacant, as you mentioned, there are a lack of properties for businesses to move into. What we're looking at doing is working alongside the town council and the property owners for those properties that are persistently vacant, to see if there's a way that we can try and encourage those properties to be released back into the market. What we can't do is create new properties, but what we can do is to try and work more closely with the property owners to see if there's a way of opening up those vacant units and bringing them back into use for those businesses who do express an interest in them.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Yeah, it just reminded me of something. We can use this strategy, I think, presumably we're going to be promoting it to our local businesses, particularly in Sudbury and Hadley. And is it possible to use it to effectively revamp, reconstitute the things like the Invest in Hadley board and the equivalent in Sudbury, so that they can provide new impetus to those, because over time they have kind of fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, there is a reason for that, especially in Hadley, and it is, yeah, and you'll be aware of some of the local issues on that. But it is something that Michelle's team does work very closely with. There's dedicated officers, business side, to do that. The locality officers as well help in that respect. But it is something that this strategy will try and encourage businesses to if you like, consult more with us in terms of Invest in Hadley. The Hadley vision, the Sudbury vision. Sudbury is obviously far more proactive in what it does, and Michelle and Nicola have a very good relationship with those. Hadley, it's a slightly different relationship, and perhaps there were not enough businesses and too much council influence in the previous board, and so that obviously needed to change. And perhaps going forward, that's what we'll do, focus on businesses having a voice rather than local government.
Yep, happy to look at the review of both of those areas. And I think also what we've looked at within the strategy is not just those 2 key town centres, but also all of our town centres, so including East Bergholt and Lavenham and Long Melford and others, so that we look at how we support all businesses in our town centres to thrive and succeed. But certainly in those larger market towns where there are bigger partnerships and lots of organisations that have a vested interest in trying to make those town centres successful, we do want to work very closely with them to try and enable that to happen.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Carter.
If I can just go back to the question before the question, and I hate to always be so cynical, but I was just wondering if you could, I mean it doesn't have to be now, but if you could elaborate on how you are speaking to these landlords, because I know in Sudbury particularly, Sudbury Town Council and the officers, those that work there, have tried speaking to landlords to see if it was possible to split units up or to let I don't know, art exhibitions happen within the vacant shops, and there are some buildings that have been vacant for a really long time, and some of the landlords are adamant that they're not going to do any of those things, and they're not going to decrease rent prices. So I was just wondering what your strategy was to speak to these landlords that so far we've been unsuccessful with.
I'll just very briefly, yeah. So meetings have taken place, and you're absolutely right, Councillor Carter. That's, you can only lead the horse to water. You can't make them drink. But what I'll also add is that Michelle, in particular, has built up some very good relationships with business owners that perhaps have been a bit reluctant before. And I include the Delphi site, for example, as well. I know that's different to the high street, but that sort of relationships and that sort of working is paying dividends, slow but sure, and sometimes it's just incremental increases in that relationship. But I'm sure Michelle will be able to give you more flesh on the bones on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very much been carrot and stick in terms of the approach that we've taken up until now, where we've been trying to work very closely with a number of the landlords, particularly in Sudbury and Hadley. There are a couple of individuals who own a lot of properties who haven't been as engaging as we would like them to be. What we've been doing in the last month or so is that MHCLG have just published some guidance on high street rental auctions, So it was a piece of legislation that came into force in November, I think it was previously brought about by the previous government and has been finalised and published by the new government. That effectively gives local authorities the ability to force landlords to release properties that have been vacant for a year. It's not quite as straightforward as it might sound. There's always hoops to jump through, but we've been working very closely with the MHCLG team to try and understand what the process might be for using some of that legislation and potentially using that as a little bit of a stick to get some of those landlords to work with us without necessarily enacting the legislation ourselves because of the length of the process that would take and how complicated it is. But if we now have something that we can use to get them to the table that we didn't have previously. So we're hoping that will start to change the conversations with them a little bit more.
Thank you. Any further questions from Cabinet members? If not, any questions from other members present? Councillor McLaren? No. Okay. I will now open up the item for debate. I'll start. I note in the slide pack, the last slide, delivering our strategy, our commitment, where we talk about the accompanying action plan will provide further details on priority actions, etc. So this is the strategy which gives us the approach. When will we get the action plan which actually shows us what we're going to be delivering?
Yeah, so with Suffolk this morning, Michelle will tell you, is that they want to bring the action plan forward as well. And it appears that probably the best time, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, is April, the April Cabinet. So we'll have it, in its full glory by then. But obviously we will see it as Cabinet beforehand, so for consultation as well, to add or to tweak it on the way. But that journey has already started. We have the bones of it, and it's just a case of fleshing it out and make sure everyone's happy that we do that for both districts.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, that wasn't actually debate, it was a question, wasn't it? I'm a bit slow. Okay, any further contributions from councillors? Councillor Ward.
I think in terms of the action plan, it's always going to be something that's going to evolve and change over time, because the essence of this strategy is obviously it's informed by and works in conjunction with the Suffolk strategy from the Suffolk Business Board. But the purpose, or one of the main purposes, is to act as a means to facilitate, enable and encourage other partners to deliver on specific actions, and those will only become clear over time as those relationships with those other partners improve and develop.
Indeed. Anything more from anybody? Right. Move to recommendations. So, that members endorse the clear long-term vision and accompanying set of ambitions, aims and objectives set out in the strategy. That the economic development strategy attached as Appendix 1 is passed to Council with a recommendation to approve it. The Director for Sustainable Communities and Economy, in consultation with the relevant Cabinet member, be delegated authority to make amendments and updates to the strategy in response to changing needs. The Director for Sustainable Communities and Economy, in consultation with the relevant Cabinet member, be delegated authority to develop an associated action plan to ensure delivery against the ambitions contained within the strategy. I will now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 8 votes for. That's carried.
Thank you. That concludes the items for discussion. The date and time of the next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 11th of February at 4 p.m. Thank you very much, officers, for all your hard work. Good papers today. Thank you very much.